Mysterious Lord Fellow. The protagonist just thinks they are playing a game and can have more characters. There is a system, but the protagonist doesn't have a name or even a gender. Character cards, approximate order of appearances, Tom. An ordinary name, born prisoner, cannon fodder. Vanessa Augustus. The darling of fate, an ordinary girl who cries when a baby snake sees her. Arthur. The glorious night. Keywords of the novel. Mystery. I open my vest in mystery without a pop-up window. Mystery. I open my vest in mystery. Download the complete set of TXT. Mystery. I open my vest in mystery. Read the latest chapter. Chapter 1. The body is the prison of the heart. 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. The body is the prison of the heart. 1. Zh. The mouse's cry seemed to be getting closer, and Tom felt something crawling back and forth on his body. This made Tom's eyelids tremble slightly, wanting to open but unable to, as if he had been haunted by a nightmare. Suddenly, the mouse stopped crawling and only heard a click sound, which was the sound of the door lock opening. A bright light shot in from the door and shone on Tom's face, stinging his eyes. I was still alive, thinking I could get another extraordinary prisoner's character. After finishing my meal, I found a way to come out on my own, and if I couldn't come out, I would die inside. A malicious male voice rang out, then he threw down a piece of black bread, locked the door again, and left. Tom listened to the footsteps gradually fading away and opened his eyes to look around. He found himself in a dirty and messy prison, which was a single cell filled with various discarded trash cans and broken wooden boxes, as well as a few decaying corpses. The air was filled with an unpleasant smell that was suffocating. He slowly stood up and walked towards the iron door, which was already rusty and even slightly damaged. He gently pushed the iron door with his hand, but it remained motionless. It is obvious that this iron door has been locked by the man just now. Tom turned his head to look at several corpses lying on the ground, including men and women, all around 20 years old, with no good flesh on his body, as if something had happened, and his expression was filled with pain. In a daze, Tom pulled off the long hair of a female corpse and opened the lock on the iron door in a way he couldn't understand. Is holographic gaming so powerful now? I shouldn't know how to unlock it. System, are you there? Open the character panel. Player. Tom Cruise. Sequence 9. Prisoners, the heart is a prisoner of the body, and the body is a prisoner of the world. You are a born prisoner, and as the only one who survived after losing control, you have attracted the attention of certain beings. Although your name is as ordinary as an emerald flower, he still wants you to have children. The cold sound of the system rang out. Newcomer benefits, please strictly abide by the play rules. This is the key to upgrading, and the sequence name is what the host wants to play. Who is he? How should we play this game? Players are requested to explore on their own. Please explore on your own. The cold sound of the system kept echoing in Tom's mind, repeating the same words. Players must explore on their own, which is the gameplay of this game, and they need to find the answer on their own. Tom doesn't have any memories before entering the game. He only knows that he is a player, doesn't remember his name, doesn't remember his past, and even doesn't remember his gender. The only thing he remembers is being bound by the system and asked to play a game. After the game started, Tom randomly selected gender and modeling, randomly chose the popular name Tom, randomly drew a career card, and then lay casually in this cell. Tom cried inwardly. If he had known this game was so real, he should have carefully pinched a pretty face and chosen a nice name instead of casually becoming a prisoner. This game only has one final task: resist the apocalypse. But for this task, Tom doesn't know how to complete it. He doesn't even know what the apocalypse is, let alone try to block it. The system can't count on it, so we have to rely on ourselves. Tom threw away the hair he had previously used to unlock his hand, picked up the black bread on the ground, tore off the dusty side, and bit into the relatively soft inner core. Although the bread didn't look delicious, it did. Tom held the bread in his mouth and waited for saliva to soften it to prevent scratching his throat. Time is slowly passing. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, half an hour passed, and Tom finally wiped out the black bread in his hand. After filling his stomach a little, he felt a burning sensation in his throat. "System, haven't you opened them all yet?" "I'm almost thirsty," Tom complained in a hoarse voice, his gloomy voice perfectly fitting that of a prisoner. Ding, system prompt. "Players, please rest assured that dying in novice mode will give you a chance to restart the game." Tom now only wants to scold the police, but his physical condition does not allow it. He can only push open the iron door and want to go out to find a water source. Tom threw away his long hair, pushed open the iron door, and walked out. The narrow and deep stairs extended upwards. Tom walked up the stairs, and the more he went up, the more he felt his inner anger. Malicious intent kept surging up from within, causing his body to start trembling. He is very angry now, he wants to destroy everything in front of him, he doesn't know why he has become like this. What's going on? Why does one's heart beat so fast? You need to restrain your malice, the cold voice of the system rang out. What? Tom's emotions were a bit out of control. Players are requested to explore on their own. Shit, a kind of plant. Tom cursed in his heart, spreading your unlucky system. No one can restrain themselves, can they? However, Tom now reluctantly regained his inner restlessness and malice, recalling the system's initial prompts. Playing the role of a prisoner. Should I go back to that cell? Those corpses died so tragically because they didn't understand how to play. Is the phrase, "body is a cage of the heart," prompting me to use my own body to restrain my inner malice and achieve the goal of playing the role of a prisoner? Tom was lost in thought, silently reciting what the system had said. Your body is already carrying malice, and you must overcome it, restrain your desires, in order to stabilize your emotions. A hoarse and strange voice sounded from behind Tom, as if a hole had been opened in his throat. Upon hearing the sound coming from behind, Tom suddenly turned his head and saw that there was no one behind him. He couldn't help but doubt the sound he had just made. Was he really too nervous? "Perhaps you should learn to bow your head," a sarcastic statement came from Tom's feet, as he felt something tugging at his pants. Ah! Tom let out a scream of surprise, falling backwards and onto the stairs. He recognized the talking face, which was the female corpse he had just borrowed a few shiny black long hair from. The female corpse was crawling on the stairs, followed by several bodies that were also already dead. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. The body is the prison of the heart 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. The body is the prison of the heart 2, give way, you're blocking the way. The voice of the female corpse rang in Tom's ear, with a hint of gloom and a strong impatience. I didn't mean to pull your hair, Tom's mind flashed with a series of fearful images. Isn't this female corpse supposed to be dead? Is she here to pluck my hair now? You should know that sequence 6 of our route is called being a zombie. Now, immediately, come with me, adults are waiting to see you on it. The female corpse lifted her face, looking at Tom with a strange smile on her face. Okay, Tom swallowed his saliva and stuttered back. Immediately, the female corpse stood up and walked forward, followed by several corpses walking up the steps. However, from the stiff walking movements, it could still be seen that these were not living beings. Tom got up from the ground, feeling a chill all over his body. The anger and malice that had filled his heart were completely suppressed, and he dared not say a word. He followed behind the living corpse and silently climbed the stairs. It turns out that living corpses can also walk normally. They just crawled and walked on purpose. Tom murmured in a low voice, thinking that the female living corpses in front could not hear. But he didn't notice that the corners of the living corpse's mouth were slightly tugging, as if they were in a happy mood. The speed of the living corpse is not fast, and it doesn't walk very quickly, as if taking a walk, and she doesn't make any noise, even though she is already a corpse. After walking for over half an hour, the living corpses finally stopped, and Tom followed suit. He looked up and saw only a stone wall blocking the way. "We're here," the female zombie said coldly. "Oh." Tom lowered his head and followed, walking to the front of the stone wall. He saw that the stone door of this huge stone had already been opened, and the crack in the door was still dripping with strands of blood. "Let's go in." The voice of the female zombie rang out again in Tom's ear. "Oh, okay." As the voice of the female zombie fell, the stone wall slowly opened, and warm yellow lights seeped out from the cracks in the wall. Tom squinted his eyes slightly, adapted to the light, and then walked into the stone room. At the moment of entering the stone chamber, Tom saw an altar in the center, with only one symbol on it. A hand wrapped in bandages. In addition, Tom also saw the figure of a woman standing in front of the altar. She was wearing a complex, gorgeous, and gloomy black long dress, with golden hair tied up with a red rope, standing high and erect at the back of her head. A long strand of green silk hung down on both sides of her cheeks, and on both sides, it hung down to her chest, gorgeous and exquisite, not like a real person. She turned her back to Tom, facing the altar, her eyes tightly closed, and her lips lightly pursed. "Your Highness Tinnicol, I have brought the only surviving person from the dungeon." The female corpse knelt in front of the altar and said respectfully. Upon hearing these words, the black-clad woman standing in place slowly turned around and looked at Tom standing behind the female corpse. A strange light flickered in her blood-red pupils. "This lady, Renette Tinnicol, is an ancient artifact of the Xenogenesis pathway, sequence 2. She is a dependent of the bound god, assisting her father in establishing the Highland Kingdom and one of the leaders of the Rose School. She advocates moderation and fights against madness with a simple and low-desire life. Thank you for your hard work, Jerry." Renette Tinnicol nodded at the female corpse. "Jerry." Tom looked at the female corpse with a strange expression on his face. At this moment, a phantom figure emerged from the female corpse and appeared in the stone chamber. He was short and looked very cunning, clearly a resentful soul. "It's Jerry's honor to serve you." His flattering tone had no malice in intimidating Tom before. With a hint of flattery, Jerry controlled the living corpse behind him, exited the stone chamber, and closed the stone door. After Jerry left, Renette Tinnicol looked at Tom again with no expression on her pale face. "His Highness Tinnicol, I'm Tom Cruise. Although it's presumptuous, I really want to have a glass of water to moisten my throat." Tom spoke cautiously. This strange game is obviously a high-level NPC, but what about NPC in high-level? "I'm almost thirsty." Renette Tinnicol lifted her intricately patterned but dark-colored cuff slightly, took out a teacup containing a light blue liquid from the spiritual realm, and threw it at Tom. Just as Tom was hurriedly preparing to catch it, she found that the teacup was being controlled and stopped in front of Tom, with no drop of liquid spilling out. "Thank you." Taking the teacup, Tom carefully took a sip, and a sweet taste came from his tongue. He let out a comfortable sigh and then looked up at the strange NPC in front of him. "Your Highness Tinnicol, may I ask if you have any commission to entrust to me? I am a professional." Tom, who had solved major life matters, confidently accepted the task from what he thought was a high-level NPC. Tom can feel the pressure of the woman in front of him, which is normal. Isn't dog planning all about building a beautiful and tragic character to deceive players into tears? Maybe this person will also be stabbed in the future. That's right. Renette Tinnicol nodded slightly, his tone still calm. "I need you to help me with something. I will not hesitate to do anything as long as I can do it. I need you to go to the church tomorrow night, and Jerry will lead you," Renette Tinnicol said as she looked at Tom. "Okay, no problem, Tom nodded without hesitation. After receiving a response, Renette Tinicol turned around again and stared at the strange symbol on the altar. After a long time, Tom, who was waiting for the task reward, couldn't help but speak up. "So, what is my task reward?" "I don't know, do I? Is playing a game now not only without beginner guidance, but also deleting the task reward?" Renette Tinicol stared at Tom again with her blood-red eyes. Although he couldn't understand what the little sequence 9 was saying in front of him, it was clear that Tom was going to complete the task as a reward. However, Renette Tinicol was prepared to fulfill this small request, as he felt the scent from Tom, which was from the same source as the recently infected scent from the god of binding. Some dangerous and mysterious entities were constantly approaching, in order to avoid any problems with the plan. Jerry will give you the Book of Mystery, which is enough for you to understand some knowledge of the extraordinary world. Update according to fate, end of this chapter. Chapter 3. The Body is the Prison of the Heart 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. The body is the prison of the heart. 3 thick clouds lay like black velvet curtains in the sky, blocking the shining stars and the red moon hanging high in the sky. Tom hesitated and paced back and forth at the church entrance, occasionally looking inside the church, feeling a bit regretful for taking on this task. Although the NPC Renette Tinicol he saw yesterday was good-looking and gave him a generous reward, which gave him at least a rough understanding of the power system of the game. As for Jerry, who explained it to him, Tom instinctively ignored it. The church is very large and rudimentary. Apart from the middle platform, there are no chairs and no eaves above. It looks like a sports stadium, just like a church. Moreover, the malicious werewolves, living corpses, and ghosts are rampant here, and at first glance, they are not serious gods. It is likely that this place is not a serious sect, and Tom cannot help but feel remorseful for his own luck. But now Tom is already struggling to get off, so he can only grit his teeth and enter the church to see the situation before making plans. This is clearly an important plot site, and he has a premonition that tonight will not be calm, otherwise how can the dog plan attract attention? After Tom entered the church, he did not attract anyone's attention. No one would focus their attention on a sequence 9. He looked around and was surprised to find that these extraordinary people were quite outgoing, with no restraint in their malice, which was very different from Jerry's. On the middle platform, the location of the emblem was also different from what Tom had seen yesterday. It was supposed to be a bandaged area, but it was replaced by black vines. On either side of the holy emblem stands a tall building, one of whom is Renette Tinicol, while the other is a man dressed in revealing clothes, with a soft and sinister face, black hair scattered behind him, half covering his snow-white body, and red fabric wrapped around his body as if it were torn off, covering several key parts. This is the sin Aea forced by the mother tree of desire to be born by the god of binding. In the year 428 of the Fifth Age, the god of binding was captured by the mother tree of desire, separating one of its extraordinary characteristics from sequence 1. In a sacrifice, the heinous Aea was born. From then on, the indulgent movement became the mainstream of the Rose School, but its state was not good. Although it was born in the form of sequence 1, its power was not much different from that of sequence 2. Therefore, members of the moderate faction led by Renette Tinicol can compete with it. Now, the state of the god sin Aea has stabilized, and he has truly been promoted to sequence 1, and the pursuit of the moderate faction is about to begin. Renette Tinicol realized that the members of the moderate faction, especially the low sequence members of sequences 9 and 8, had recently lost control under the Red Moon, and that he was invited to attend a ritual that had already expelled the moderate faction. She understood that it was likely a trap against him. So, he decided to take advantage of this situation and delay most of the power of the indulgent faction, allowing his student Sharon to escape with the remnants of the moderate faction. As for Tom, he was only worried that being infected by the scent of the mother tree of desire would lead the gaze of the godly sin Aea towards the remnants of the moderate faction, which was why he came to participate in this sacrifice. The worship of the indulgent sect is very primitive, they indulge their desires without concealing their malice. In their eyes, the rough and savage bloody sacrifice is the best ritual, fresh human skin, children's skulls, and hot and warm human blood can better arouse their desires. Tom couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva as he watched the crazy scene in front of him. Seeing the complex situation here, it seemed that it was not suitable for him to stay here. Some players pursue excitement and passion in playing games, while others enjoy deciphering the gameplay of farming. But their commonality is that they don't want to be abused. No player likes to be cut like a leek. If there is, it must be a mature leek. The dark clouds gradually dissipated, and the blood-red moonlight scattered slowly. The extraordinary beings illuminated by the moonlight began to undergo mutations, while the extraordinary ones of the indulgent faction became even crazier, while the small part of the moderate faction on the scene began to weaken. Renette Tinicol understands that she can no longer wait and must take immediate action. Upon noticing the sin of Renette Tinicol's movements, Sear's face lit up with a crazy smile. Mahums has already set out to pursue the traitors of the Rose School, and under the guidance of the Mother Goddess, you will eventually be judged, Renette. A ferocious smile appeared at the corner of Sear's mouth, as if everything was under control. After hearing these words, Renette Tinicol's expression changed and she immediately took out a broken crown, which was an item made by the extraordinary features of the last sequence 1 in the bound path. Lost crown appearance. A crown entwined with thorns, but with rust stains ability. Enhance the ability of the bound to pass through the extraordinary, allowing users to enter a state of divine sin with the crown. If used by an angel in sequence 2, they can rival sequence 1 for a certain period of time. Negative effect. After being spiritually absorbed by the crown, the user will be drained by the crown. With the spiritual injection of Renette Tinicol, the crown changed its original broken state and became as smooth as new. Renette Tinicol's body instantly swelled and grew much larger. His mouth opened and he maintained the act of inhaling inwards. A cold, chilly wind blew, attacking the extraordinary beings in the middle sequence of the indulgent faction, pulling their spiritual bodies, preventing them from entering a resentful state. At the same time, members of the moderate faction quickly killed the werewolves, corpses, and vengeful spirits of the indulgent faction. Tom watched the scene before him, bent down, and secretly prepared to escape, running away, which was also a necessary ability for criminals. Suddenly, a black shadow flashed by. Before Tom could react, he saw the werewolf's claws coming towards him. He hurriedly dodged, but his body couldn't keep up with the werewolf's speed. Just as Tom was desperately closing his eyes and waiting for death to come, the anticipated pain did not come. Tom opened his eyes slightly and found that the werewolf was being held in place, with its pointed claws piercing through his head. "You're such a fool." A familiar voice spat out from the werewolf's mouth, and the vengeful soul, Jerry, drifted out of the body of the indulgent werewolf, continuing to kill other members of the indulgent faction near Tom. On the other hand, Renette Tinicol brought the heinous Sierra into the spiritual realm. Although he could use his mythological form to take away members of the indulgent faction below sequence 5, there were also members of the moderate faction, including Jerry Tom, on site, and he could not do so. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. The Body is the Prison of the Heart 4. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. The Body is the Prison of the Heart 4. In the spiritual realm, the battle between two sequence 1 creatures caused the surrounding spiritual creatures to flee one after another. Renette Tinicol did not hesitate and transformed into a huge puppet doll, with blood-red eyes staring at the divine sin AEA in front of her, initiating a transformation curse. Through the same path and sequence, their struggles are more inclined towards power struggles. Although Renette Tinicol can briefly resist the newly promoted sin CA with a level 0 seal, the insane spiritual consumption is also a huge burden for Renette Tinicol. The blood-red moon rose in the tide. The original moon interfered with the red moon and helped the mother tree of desire exert its influence on the moderators. Although they can be called the plastic sisters flowers of the outer world, the original moon needed the mother tree of desire's influence on reality to find its lost power. In this blood sacrifice, not only members of the indulgent and moderate factions existed, but also believers of the primitive moon infiltrated. Tom saw a moderate werewolf being irradiated by the blood moon, and the blood sprayed out turned into ears of grain. Greedy flowers grew in his eyes, and vines stretched out from his navel, supporting the werewolf to walk unsteadily. Tom, frightened by the eerie scene, hid in the corner and secretly called out Jerry's name. He wanted to take Jerry and escape together. But as the power of the primitive moon entered, pollution began to spread throughout the church, and Tom gradually lost control of his body. Warning! Warning! The system sound that never appeared in Tom's mind, making him slightly sober, but he still couldn't resist the pollution of the external god and eventually passed out. Pollution detected, the system is ready to initiate a repair program. Ding, repair failed. The character card is damaged and the bound person's path is permanently closed. The system stripped away the player's consciousness, abandoned the contaminated parts, and left this place. The mother tree of desire successfully bloomed and bears fruit on Tom's corpse. Tom Cruise died at the age of 23 hours. Spiritual realm. Renette Tinicol sensed the frenzy of spiritual passing and the arrival of pollution, and he prepared to use a secret method to transform himself into a spiritual creature. He calculated in this way, while increasing the infusion of spirituality, making the seer feel a slight threat. Roar. Ca let out a loud roar, his eyes turning red. The mythical black mud converged into a huge axe and swung it towards the head of the doll. Renette Tinicol did not resist and allowed the axe to cut off her own head, dividing it into 4 halves. With her own death, she completed the final step of the secret law and transformed into a spiritual creature, retaining the position and strength of Sequence 2. He stretched out his sleeve and bustling arm, grabbed his split head into 4, and at the same time took off his lost crown, opened the door of the spiritual realm, throwing it into the raging sea, while he turned around and ran towards the depths of the spiritual realm. The seer did not pursue Renette Tinicol, but instead ran towards the Sea of Fury, searching for the lost crown. The extraordinary features of Sequence 1 in the path of the bound were more important to him, which gave Renette Tinicol a chance to escape. I don't know how long it took, but after the system was maintained and updated, the player's consciousness revived in the system space. This game is too scary, isn't it, system? The player couldn't help but complain. Ding, the system update is complete. Prisoner Tom Cruise has been contaminated and his character cards have been damaged. The game will open up multiple character cards for players. Ding, the system provides a hanging growth mode, and players' consciousness will split into character cards. Memory will not be shared, and each character will grow independently. Listening to the sound of the system in their ears, the player was stunned. In order to prevent contamination from external gods, the player's advanced extraordinary knowledge will be blocked after entering the game, because if they are not careful, they will be directly scrapped like the prisoner card this time. The first character of the player is a woman with an ordinary and quiet appearance, randomly named Ariana by the system. She enters the game in a confused way, joins the night church, and luckily grows into the secret servant of Sequence 2. But the position of the true god in the night path has been occupied, and the player feels that the night goddess is quite good, so they can only restart a character. However, they didn't expect such bad luck. They drew the bound path, but they still can't live for 3 days. Is it really because the name Tom is too ordinary? If the player thinks about it. Ding, after the system update, each character has added passive skills. Players are advised to explore on their own. Ding, the end of the world is approaching. Players are advised to complete the main quest as soon as possible. The player pondered for a while and decided that this time he must not pinch the cannon fodder face. He must be careful when naming, not every vest has the good luck of Ariana. Tom was born in the southern continent, and even angels cannot cross the raging sea to rescue him. The player recalled the new mode brought by the system update and skillfully opened Ariana's character panel. Player: Ariana. Sequence 2. The secret servant, Dean of the Night Monastery, leader of ascetics, and Archbishop of the Night Church. Character description: Night's companion, the goddess's gaze is with you. You are a person with a big shot behind you, so you can act arrogantly. Arrogant people don't live long. The player silently roast. The lady on the character card has ordinary facial features, with only her eyes like night shining slightly on her ordinary face. She is dressed in a simple robe, tied with a bark belt, with long black hair hanging down, without shoes or socks, and bare feet. Even just looking at the character card, the player's heart becomes peaceful, which makes the player have to doubt their luck again. It is also an ordinary face pinching, but this time it is not a random naming by the system. How can a character card be scrapped? The player took the opportunity to cut through Ariana's perspective and found that he was still praying in the Night Monastery in Frost County. He stopped paying attention and started his own kneading career. Her brown long hair was soft and slightly curled, casually draped over her shoulders. Her azure eyes were clear and transparent, as deep as a lake. Her nose was slightly raised, her lips were full, and a smile appeared at the corner of her mouth, revealing her good mood. The player looked at the girl he was squeezing out little by little. In his memory, someone once said that a girl who loves to laugh has good luck. This time, there should be a different journey. Your name is Vanessa, the girl favored by fate. As the player's words fell, the system that was watching in the void finally spoke out. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. No chance, only inevitability 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. No chance, only inevitability 1. Ding. Please ask the host to start extracting professions. The system prompts the sound, and the player's palm trembles before stopping. Is it finally about to start? No matter which game it is, the lottery is always the best way to verify the non-chieftain and the emperor. The players ceremoniously washed their palms, took a deep breath, and pressed the open button. Ding. Player: Vanessa Augustus. Sequence 5. Winners, character description. You are favored by fate like your name, yet fate's gift has already been secretly marked with a price. Ding. The character card has been generated and is ready to release players' intentions. Please be prepared. After generating the character card, the system automatically fills in the past life of the character card, and the future is determined by the player. Vanessa opened her eyes from a low-key and luxurious large bed, with a hint of confusion in her eyes, but soon she realized it, her eyes flickering with excitement. She lifted the light and thin velvet sheet, sat up, curled up on the bed, hugged her arms, closed her eyes, and felt the warmth of the sun shining on her body outside the window. She slowly opened her eyes and looked out at the sunlight, which shone on her fair face. She reached out her right hand to touch the warmth of the sunlight, as if enjoying it. She felt very comfortable and couldn't help but let out a sigh. This is really a perfect start. At this moment, she heard a knock on the door and couldn't help but frown. It was Vanessa's maid who was knocking on the door. Even with the memories of Vanessa Augustus, she still struggles to adapt to the life of a noblewoman. Dong 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 dot. After 3 knocks on the door, the maid Mary pushed the door open and walked in. She looked at Vanessa lying on the bed, leaned slightly, and said in a respectful and sweet tone. Your Highness, Royal Highness Princess, you are awake. Do you want me to ask White to bring breakfast? Vanessa nodded, got up from the bed, walked into the bathroom, finished grooming, changed into a white gauze dress, and sat at the dining table eating milk and white bread. She ate elegantly according to her memory while flipping through the background information, feeling surprised by Vanessa's good luck. Vanessa is not actually the biological daughter of the ruling ruler of the Kingdom of Rune. Her princess status is a bit awkward to say. She was originally just the daughter of a farmer in East Chester County, and her parents were both poor. She was originally sold by her parents to work as a maid at the Earl of Hull's mansion, but she was unexpectedly taken in by Mrs. Bond, who was a guest at the Earl of Hull's house at the time. Madame Pound was a wealthy aristocratic widow, surnamed Augustus before her marriage. She was the youngest sister of King Rune, with a weak body and no inheritance of Augustus's extraordinary characteristics. She had no interest in the extraordinary world. Madame Pound's greatest wish since childhood was to have a warm and happy family. It is obvious that the royal struggles have made Madame Pound only want to escape. Originally, Madame Pound should have been called Madame Nigan. The royal family wanted to use her to marry the Duke of Nigan in exchange for a pro-conservative bias, but Madame Pound was unwilling to do so. The royal family only allowed direct bloodlines to marry nobles, so Lady Pound chose Viscount Pound as an adult. He was a gentleman with red hair, azure eyes, and no parents, only a distant cousin. Once married, Lady Pound could become the head of the family. They did live a happy life for 2 years after marriage, but Viscount Pound died from a horse accident after participating in a hunting activity, and they did not conceive the crystal of love. Madame Pound was attracted to Vanessa by her eyes, with blue pupils like Viscount Pound's eyes and brown hair like Madame Pound's. If they had children, they would definitely be like Vanessa, Madame Pound thought. In Mrs. Pound's view, Vanessa was simply a gift from the goddess of the night, so she gave Vanessa's parents a sum of money and adopted her. These experiences can only indicate that Vanessa has a protagonist aura similar to that of the female protagonist Marisu. According to the normal development of the plot, the female protagonist should meet a true love, and the true love must have a sister who loves him passionately. The female protagonist was drugged, misunderstood, and chased after, and then fled after him. A few years later, she took a very intelligent child and killed him back. Unfortunately, Vanessa is not the protagonist of Marisu, she may actually play the role of a ball running with the ball. Viscount Pound can be said to be a winner in life. Their family was originally down to this generation, with only one baron's title left, and even their ancestral home was sold. If it weren't for Viscount Pound's handsome appearance and his favor with Lady Pound at a banquet, George III would have promoted him to Viscount Pound, but he still didn't have much wealth. It can be said that Viscount Pound's handsome face is his greatest wealth. Therefore, Élisée Augustus, the frail foster mother, had to return to the Rouen royal family located at the border of Queens and the West End before her death to allow Vanessa to inherit her property, praying to her brother to have Vanessa bear the surname Augustus. Let's talk about how Vanessa became the winner of Sequence 5. This must be lamented by the capriciousness of fate. Some people directly swallowed extraordinary features, lost control and became monsters, while others jumped to become the highest sequence under the demigod. Vanessa is undoubtedly the latter. Who would have thought that Vanessa was just playing hide and seek with Audrey, the miss of the Earl of Hull family, when she broke into the storage room and opened a tin iron box, which happened to contain an extraordinary feature. The extraordinary characteristics of the winner were directly absorbed by Vanessa, causing her to doze off in the storage room for an afternoon until Audrey notified Madame Pound and the servants discovered her. In summary, Vanessa Augustus had no parents at all and no children at all, inheriting most of her adoptive mother's estate. There was an estate in East Chester County and a Red Rose estate in the suburbs of Queens, with around £10,000 in cash, as well as equity and bonds that could bring her an annual income of £5,000. Her total assets were approximately £100,000, making her one of the wealthy women. Unfortunately, the wealthy woman was not yet of age. Most of the assets mentioned above, except for cash and income, were taken care of by the third prince of the Kingdom of Rune, the Earl of Ruston, and His Royal Highness Prince Isaac Augustus. It was not until Vanessa reached adulthood that she returned them to her. Vanessa Augustus doesn't understand role-playing, and even lacks knowledge of mysticism. She hasn't lost control yet, purely in life, she is a winner. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. The Secret Servant 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. The Secret Servant 1. After accepting the plot background, Vanessa put the last fork of fried egg into her mouth. She picked up the black tea cup placed on her right side, took a gentle sip, and suppressed the taste of breakfast. Then, she wiped her mouth with a tissue and nodded in satisfaction. Mary, I need to stay in the study all day today. If you have nothing to do, don't disturb me, Vanessa said softly as she looked at the maid Mary standing behind her. She is planning to take a good look at the item, Book of Mysteries, that was dropped from the discarded character card during this time. As mentioned before, players split their consciousness into different character cards, but their memories are not the same. Although they are essentially all individuals, memory determines personality, and each vest has its own persona. Just like Ariana's card, it belongs to the strongest card in the player's hand, but its personality is relatively quiet and does not like to talk. However, when other characters ask for some knowledge, they will also tell them, of course, without being contaminated by knowledge. As for the scrapped character cards, their belongings are not just taken back to the system space and confiscated for processing. A book that can be read for Sequence 9, Vanessa cannot read a Sequence 5 without reason. However, Miss Hall invites you to visit the Count's mansion this afternoon, Mary reminded in distress. Audrey. Oh, yes, she said she just got a new mirror and wants to show it to me. Vanessa immediately reacted when she heard Mary's words. Besides, you will have another dance class later, Mary added. Vanessa glanced at the pendulum clock placed on the wall of the restaurant. It was exactly 8 o'clock, and the dance teacher would come to visit at 9:30 in the morning. After 11 o'clock, Vanessa could enjoy lunch. Wait a moment, when the teacher comes, Mary, come to the study and call me, Vanessa said. Okay, miss, Mary replied respectfully. Upon arriving at the study, Vanessa closed the door and lay expressionless in her chair, grateful that she was about to reach adulthood. She had completed all the basic courses for the nobility, such as Hermes, Giants, and Intis, and had already graduated. The system kindly loaded it into Vanessa's mind to prevent her from making a fool of herself. As for the dance class, Vanessa is not worried. The extraordinary beings of the Wheel of Fate pathway, even if not good at frontal combat, still have a stronger and more flexible body than most ordinary people. Now, the most important thing is to read some mystical knowledge mentioned in the Book of Mysteries, which can be enough to make up for one's own shortcomings. Ruin Kingdom, Ahawa County, Tingen City. Ariana received the prophecy of the night goddess and came here to lead a lost cat on the grocery shopping road for him. He took out his homemade gray-blue beautiful pupils and put them into his eyes. He then applied a simulated silicone skin to his face and applied red and yellow oil paint for a second disguise. He put on a black robe, wore a pointed wizard hat, and invited Klein Moretti, the protagonist of this game, who was consulting with the clown in front of him. Do you want to do divination? A hoarse voice sounded from Ariana's mouth. He learned from the night goddess the virtues of prudence and caution. Facing future fools and diviners, approaching without involving extraordinary abilities is the safest choice. Before and after putting on makeup, the ancient magic that even mom doesn't recognize can withstand the test of time. Upon hearing a female voice coming from behind, Klein instinctively turned around and looked at the woman who had approached him and dressed strangely. However, Klein, who was poor, did not have any spare money to do divination. He shook his head and replied, no. Ariana saw Klein refuse without showing any surprised expression. He had already learned from the game introduction provided by the system that the protagonist's financial situation was not very good, so he smiled and said, Don't refuse so quickly, my tarot divination is very accurate, and besides, you are the first customer, free of charge. Upon hearing this, Klein hesitated for a moment before nodding. Ariana didn't know if tarot divination had touched Klein's heart or if it was free, but he thought it was probably free. After all, he saw Klein's notes in the system that seemed to indicate poor kidney function and not a rich wallet. After watching Klein agree, Ariana took him into the nearby tent. The original owner of the tent ran to the paid toilet. Based on my previous experience of fishing, this was enough time to complete a divination. After entering the tent, Klein found the place very rudimentary. In the dim and narrow tent, there was a round table filled with cards, but Ariana was not affected by the darkness and sat down lightly around the round table. Ariana folded the tarot cards on the table and pushed them towards Klein, then took out a candle from the drawer and lit it. Under the backdrop of the flickering candlelight and the faint smoke, a mysterious aura swept through. At this moment, Klein felt that the woman in front of him was truly capable of divination. "You shuffle and cut the cards," Ariana whispered, tapping lightly on the table with her hand. "From the moment you pick up the tarot card, fate is already within it, and I am just an observer, an interpreter." With a rhythmic tone and Ariana's specially rehearsed posture, if the midnight poet parasitized by the old man were here, he would definitely be more certain of his extraordinary destiny. However, to Ariana's surprise, the protagonist in front of her stared at him with a skeptical gaze. Interpretation. Fees. Klein assumed that as soon as he heard about the fees, even if it was a penny, he would turn around and leave. Ariana couldn't help but be stunned by the situation. What's going on with this protagonist? Frugal household management. The mysterious atmosphere that was finally brewing almost collapsed. Of course, it's free. That's good. Klein calmed down and skillfully shuffled and cut the cards, then neatly placed the tarot cards in the center of the round table. "Sorry, I forgot to ask. What do you want to do divination?" "Only by understanding your own demands and shuffling with such doubts can you decipher the trajectory of fate." Ariana smiled slightly. "The past, present, and future." Klein did not conceal his thoughts. Ariana could see Klein's longing for the past, doubts about the present, and confusion about the future. Just like the players in the past, the excitement of being picked up by the system and the loss of interest in finding their way back home. The players were originally a dead end, playing games every day, but now they are still playing games. He suddenly lost his teasing mood towards the protagonist in front of him, and only wanted to complete the task given to him by the goddess as soon as possible. Ariana looked at Klein for a while, sighed lightly, and said, "I know. Send it in advance today. You still can't stay up late on weekdays." End of this chapter. Chapter 7. The Secret Servant 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. The Secret Servant 2. He picked up the top 3 tarot cards from Klein's shuffled tarot cards and arranged them one by one, from left to right, past, present, and future. After finishing all of this, Ariana lifted her head and looked deeply at Klein with her gray-blue eyes. "Where do you want to look first?" Ariana suddenly paused, sensing that the original owner of this tent had already solved a major life issue. On the way back, he forcefully flipped through the middle card. "You must be confused about the present, so let's look at the present first." As Ariana flipped, the card depicted a young man dressed in gorgeous clothes, wearing a dazzling headdress, carrying a cane on his shoulder, luggage hanging from the tip of the cane, and a small dog pulling behind him, with the serial number 0. Exactly, fools. After completing the goddess's mission, Ariana left the city of Tingen. He didn't really want to see this game protagonist again recently, and he no longer had the intention of participating in the plot. Time is the most powerful enemy, and players know this from the beginning. Therefore, every time he opens a new vest, he only gives the vest the initial memory. The memory of the one who only loves playing games and dies, plus some knowledge to form a new character card. His humanity has long been worn away by being trapped in a system space without any human presence, and the emergence of character cards allows him to experience the various possibilities of life. Ariana kept shuttling through the spiritual realm and quickly returned to the night monastery located in Winter's Hire, back to her own prayer room. However, in just a few hours, no one would know that the leader of this monastery had gone out before. Ariana was the first character card created by players, and at that time, players were just beginners who didn't know how to perform. They had a lot of flaws on their bodies, and if they hadn't started the game in the Dark Church and been blessed by the goddess early on, they might have ended up like Tom's card. Ariana spiritually sealed off the prayer room, staring blankly at the emblem of the night goddess, which was emitting a soft radiance. He feels a bit homesick, that home, although not wealthy, is warm enough. The breath of the night gradually strengthened in the prayer room, and Ariana could feel her spiritual body constantly rising into the star realm. In the sky filled with darkness, stars twinkled, and the moonflowers emitted a refreshing fragrance. A pair of hands clearly belonging to European women patted Ariana's shoulder from behind, and Ariana knew that this was the goddess's appearance in the old days. The remnants of the past are never alone. My home is where my heart is at peace. On Monday, Beckland, Queens. Vanessa sent away the dance teacher who came to teach. Instead of dancing, she now cares more about The Book of Mysteries, a beginner's textbook for moderation written by the angel Renette Tinicol in Sequence 2. This is different from the mystical knowledge Ariana gained, which contains things and secrets that only extraordinary organizations in the South know. However, the content involved in The Book of Mysteries is not profound, and most of it is basic knowledge. The content mentioned in the middle sequence is only the name, as well as the real stories that Vanessa believes can be read outside of class. This is mainly to prevent some extraordinary individuals with excessive curiosity from doing foolish actions that can turn themselves into extraordinary characteristics, as mentioned on the first page of the Book of Mysteries. A moderate distance can better fulfill each other's cherish. No one should be reckless enough to use Hermes to read the name of an unknown existence. It has to be said that if Renette Tinicol were not the angel of the Highland Kingdom and wrote novels, she would definitely become a best-selling novelist. Her writing style, thinking style, logic, and so on are all top-notch, and she is very good at capturing the hearts of readers. Her writing always carries her own ideas, allowing readers to deeply experience and comprehend them, and thus resonate with them. These are all characteristics of Renette Tinicol. When addicted to reading, Vanessa always worries about the difference in time flow compared to studying. Even though she has only read a quarter, the maid Mary has gently knocked on the door of the study. "Miss, lunch is ready," said the maid Mary respectfully. "Okay, I'll be right over." Vanessa stuffed The Book of Mysteries back into the system space, walked out of the study, and arrived at the restaurant. Generally speaking, the content of lunch is determined by the chef based on the ingredients purchased on the day. Except for the employer sometimes naming the things they want to eat, the chef is free to play at other times. For example, today's lunch was Beckland's barbecue, and the chicken breast itself had no flavor. After baking, the chef drizzled the gravy, paired it with fresh vegetables and a cup of Yorkshire pudding. By the time Vanessa finished her lunch, the thoughtful maid Mary had chosen a dress suitable for a private gathering and placed it in Vanessa's bedroom. For a wealthy noblewoman who is not short of money, the clothes she wears when going out to participate in important events should not appear again, as this is the dignity of the nobles. But Vanessa only went to visit Audrey in the afternoon, which was a private visit among friends. As long as she didn't lose her dignity, of course, it would be comfortable. 2:00 in the afternoon. Vanessa rode the carriage to the villa of Count Hall in Queens. Susie had already heard the commotion as she walked back and forth at the door, her tail swaying into a windmill shape, showing her warmth and welcome to Vanessa. "Susie, good afternoon," Vanessa touched the head of the golden retriever and said with a smile. Audrey also walked out, affectionately holding onto Vanessa's arm and pulling her into the villa. "You finally arrived, I'm almost in a hurry." "Let's go to my room," Audrey complained. "Should I go say hello to Count and Lady Hall?" Vanessa asked. "No need, Dad and Mom are taking my brother to the party, Audrey urged, pulling Vanessa towards her bedroom. Audrey's bedroom is decorated beautifully, with a circular table made of white jade in the middle and a rattan chair next to it. At the other end of the table is a glass window, and sunlight shines in from outside, reflecting the beauty of the entire bedroom. "This room is really beautiful," Vanessa exclaimed sincerely. "Thank you for the compliment, Vanessa. Look at this mirror. Dad told me that this mirror is a treasure of the ancient Black Emperor of the Solomon Empire and an extraordinary item." Audrey pointed to the mirror and said, looking excited. Vanessa obediently looked at the bronze mirrors placed on the dressing table that were out of place in this room, ancient yet wait. Vanessa's vision suddenly opened, and she could see the surging mist on this mirror. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Fate's Favorite 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Fate's Favorite 2. Under Vanessa's gaze, the gray gas above the bronze mirror gradually condensed. As an extraordinary figure who glimpses the river of fate and inspires the path of the wheel of destiny, Vanessa can feel the immense threat and oppression that the mist brings to her. In her senses, there was a palpitating sense of danger hidden in the mist. The position of this fog must be very high. At this moment, Audrey's hand reached out, ready to pick up the bronze mirror. It was only then that Vanessa noticed that Audrey was also covered in a little mist. Audrey has an unknown connection with the fog. Not good. Vanessa exclaimed in her heart, as her figure quickly charged forward, trying to prevent Audrey from coming into contact with the mist again. Connecting with an unknown existence is a very dangerous thing, and the most correct way to live this life is to go to the night church to seek purification from the archbishop and seal off the mirror. Unfortunately, Vanessa's movements were still too slow, and the copper mirror placed on the table suddenly burst into a deep red light, enveloping them all at once. Above a gray-white mist, Vanessa returned to her senses and was covered in the swirling mist in the air. Her body trembled, but her spirituality told her that the owner of this mist had no ill intentions. However, Vanessa stared fixedly at her trembling hands, trying to use her mind to make them stop shaking. There is no egg at all. When you watch horror movies like Curse, you know it's fake, but your physiological reaction just can't be controlled. At the same time, the mysterious person, Klein, hidden in the mist, also looked at Vanessa with concern. She might have Parkinson's disease, but she didn't come to touch me, did she? I really don't have money. Your Excellency, where is this? What do you want to do? Audrey and Alger, who had been observing on the side for a long time, coincidentally spoke up. Oh, Audrey's voice. Upon hearing the familiar female voice, Vanessa tried her best to put on the posture of a noble woman for the sake of the so-called noble face. Her hands no longer trembled, and her waist no longer felt sore. She looked towards the direction of the suspected figure of Audrey, provided that she ignored her occasionally twitching calves. But after her eyes scanned the figure, she immediately froze and quickly lowered her head. Vanessa saw a presence that seemed like a mist, which deeply hurt her eyes. There was a brief silence above the mist for a few seconds, and the mist fairy chuckled lightly, with a flat tone and a low but not heavy voice, as if responding to a polite greeting from a visitor. Try. What are you going to do? Vanessa's voice revealed a strong sense of vigilance, but her tone was very humble and pitiful, like a little pitiful being bullied by a bully. Sigh, look at that Tom, who has lived for almost a day, and I was only a few hours old. Vanessa, who was getting angrier and angrier as she wanted to stomp her feet, dared not move. Audrey took a breath and showed an impeccable polite smile, asking nervously. Your Excellency, has the attempt ended? Can we go back now? Of course, if you formally propose, I can let you go back now. Can you let me go back then? This is really a wonderful experience. Well, I've been looking forward to something similar. I mean, I love mystery, I love miracles beyond nature. No, my point is, what do I mean, Your Excellency, how can I become an extraordinary person? The former's voice comes from Vanessa, who doesn't want to be with the strange and terrifying mist spirit at all, while the latter comes from Audrey. Those who don't know are innocent. Moreover, Audrey's love for mysticism is very strong enough to forget the fear of being pulled into an unfamiliar environment. Klein didn't pay attention to the two girls' questions. As his thoughts turned, the mist kept rolling and frightened Vanessa, thinking that his words had displeased the mist spirit. Stone pillars emerged from the mist around them, revealing themselves in the mist and pushing upwards to support a vast expanse of sky. Subsequently, in the center of the stone pillar, a bronze table appeared, with 10 chairs on each side and one in the front and back, symbolizing the 22 paths of the gods. Klein sat in the front seat, Alger and Audrey sat opposite each other, and Vanessa sat next to Audrey. Until Audrey bought the audience's potion formula and agreed on a deal with Alger, Vanessa remained immersed in her thoughts and did not speak. You can call me the fool. The self-proclaimed foolishness successfully caught Vanessa's attention. What the hell, fool? Isn't that the mysterious and shameless man behind the protagonist Klein in the system introduction? I heard they ended up sleeping together. Mist spirit equals fool equals Klein's man, the equation quickly established in Vanessa's mind. Isn't this her own person? Harm, it has scared me for so long. Vanessa suddenly felt her legs no longer trembling, her waist no longer sore, and even wanted to cross her waist and laugh a few times. She was the first vest in the protagonist's camp to blend in. The change in Vanessa's state quickly caught Alger's attention. Does this trembling woman know the fool? Even so, he may still exist as a believer, a fool. Is it indeed a resurrected existence? When people are daydreaming, time always passes quickly, and tarot will have reached the stage where Audrey proposes to use tarot cards instead of real names for communication. I have decided, my title is Justice. This is one of the 20.2 main cards of tarot. What about you, sir? Audrey smiled and looked at her companion across from her. Alger frowned slightly and quickly stretched out, hanging upside down. This was another main card. Then the three of them turned their gaze to the only silent Vanessa, and the quiet environment finally brought Vanessa back to reality. She hurriedly said, "The Wheel of Destiny, I choose this title." Similarly, this is also one of the main cards of tarot cards. Alright, that's all for this gathering. From now on, every Monday at 3 p.m., find a solitary room and I'll bring you all here. Klein's spirituality was rapidly consumed, which greatly shortened the time of the tarot meeting. He immediately interrupted Audrey, who still wanted to speak, and announced the end of the secret gathering. Obey your will. Alger bowed his head and saluted. Follow your will. Vanessa and Audrey imitated the upside-down hanging person. As the red light faded, the figure on the mist became illusory, and Vanessa and Audrey regained consciousness in the room. The ancient bronze mirror lost its extraordinary power and shattered one piece after another on the ground. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Fate's Favorite 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Fate's Favorite 3 From the shattered copper mirror, the power of deep red divided into two parts and flowed on the backs of Audrey and Vanessa's hands, quickly hiding. After calming down for a moment, Audrey finally looked at Vanessa. Vanessa, you were indeed there just now. Audrey's voice was filled with affirmation. We have experienced such an unusual adventure, fool. Before she could finish speaking, Audrey was gently covered in her mouth by Vanessa's fingers. Vanessa used the silver knife stored in her handbag and made a few cuts around the room. The spiritual wall blocked Audrey's room, and only then did Vanessa signal that Audrey could continue speaking. What are you doing, Vanessa? Audrey, because she was not yet an extraordinary person, could not see the formation of the spiritual wall, and could only feel a different change in the room compared to before. This is the wall of spirituality, a small trick that even extraordinary people can do, but it is very practical as it can block an area and prevent unknown spirits from peeping, explained Vanessa. Vanessa, are you actually an extraordinary? What's the sequence? What's the way? Alright, if you hadn't met Mr. Fool today, would you have planned to keep it from me? Audrey widened her eyes and looked at Vanessa with a reproachful gaze. However, if you tell me about the extraordinary world, I will forgive you. Audrey blinked and made a cute expression that was not in line with aristocratic manners. Okay, that's also what I'm going to tell you. The extraordinary world is really dangerous, Vanessa nodded helplessly. Let me sort out my thoughts. Starting from today's events, I must say that if it weren't for Mr. Fool today, our situation would really be very dangerous. The Orthodox Church has repeatedly emphasized that one should never pray to the unknown, nor recite the unknown name, as these actions may attract their attention and lead to many tragedies. Vanessa looked at Audrey seriously, teaching her some mystical knowledge to prevent her from getting into trouble that day. Audrey listened attentively and couldn't help but feel a cold sweat for her bold behavior today when she heard that some people were contaminated by unknown entities and died tragically. Fortunately, she met Mr. Fool this time. After all, extraordinary people like Vanessa couldn't pretend to tremble with fear in the mist, but when they heard the name of Mr. Fool, they were no longer afraid. Kind Audrey is not prepared to reveal these dark histories about Vanessa at this time. Vanessa, tell me about Mr. Fool. You seem to know him very well. Audrey shook Vanessa's arm with a curious expression. Vanessa hesitated for a moment, but still spoke out what she knew. Well, actually I'm not too sure. I saw the story a long time ago and I don't know if it's true or false. The way Vanessa makes memories, yes, it is indeed very early. After all, the part of the player's human memory is tens of thousands of years ago, and she is not a general practitioner. It is normal for her to not remember it clearly. Mr. Fool should be a reviving ancient god, probably awakened from his slumber by sensing the breath of his lover. Lover! Audrey exclaimed, feeling too loud and quickly covering her mouth. That's right. A long time ago, Mr. Fool woke up from his slumber again. He was awakened by the voice of a kind young man, and for some reason, he was trapped inside the boy's body and could not leave. The young man had no family and grew up alone. The people around him also regarded him as a monster due to his extraordinary abilities. Although he has been passively accepting external malice, the young man did not give up on himself, but worked hard to live and hoped to gain the recognition of the villagers around him. However, how could a person always be optimistic? Some words cannot be said during the day, but can no longer be tense when alone at night. Amidst the cries of the young man, Mr. Fool curiously asked, "Why didn't you fight back when someone hurt you?" The young man was startled by Mr. Fool, and he didn't know why different voices appeared from his mouth. The young man did not answer Mr. Fool's question, but firmly believed that Mr. Fool was his family, just like Aunt Maria next door always calling her husband's name in the middle of the night, even though Uncle Jack had passed away for a long time. In a rental house in Tingen City. Klein stroked his forehead, which was throbbing with pain due to spiritual exhaustion, and lay on his bed, gently massaging his thumbs on both sides of his temples. At this time, if there was wind oil essence, the effect should be better. The trading house above the mist doesn't sound serious. I'm creating a video dating platform in a different world. However, it's beneficial for me to understand this world and master some extraordinary knowledge. The pain in the skull gradually eased, and Klein was thinking about the fog. Suddenly, he felt his nose itch and sneezes kept coming out, which made the originally relieved migraine even more sour and unpleasant. Damn it, who was speaking ill of me behind my back? Subsequently, Klein was forced back to bed by Melissa, who happened to be returning home, because he really caught a cold. As the saying goes, over time, love grows. Mr. Fool accompanies the young man as he grows up, inseparable and interdependent. They keep it to themselves until a fairy in the rain, when the young man confesses his feelings to Mr. Fool. But the good times didn't last long. His enemies sensed Mr. Fool's recovery and sent his men to capture the boy as a hostage to threaten him. Mr. Fool followed the boy's whereabouts and arrived at the enemy's stronghold. Their battle lasted for 3 days and 3 nights, and Mr. Fool's enemy eventually ran out of spirituality. However, they were dealt with poison and launched an attack from the shadows towards Mr. Fool. Suddenly, the boy appeared and blocked the attack for Mr. Fool. Vanessa was talking nonsense in a serious manner, and in her memory, the poster advertised that Mr. Fool was indeed standing behind the game protagonist holding him. However, the memories given by the players are all fragmented, and such a thing must have happened before, Vanessa thought without any hesitation. One dares to speak, and the other dares to believe. Audrey's charming eyes were now filled with tears. Mr. Fool is indeed a good god, but later on, what was the name of the young man? Vanessa spread out her hands and expressed that she did not understand the situation that followed. I don't remember much. Since Mr. Fool is reviving again, then the youth should also appear. The Fool is the first card, maybe the youth is the world. Until now, I haven't understood several websites of the reading group. This article was first published by Genesis, and when I saw Genesis turning into QQ reading, I looked confused. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Fate's Favorite 5. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Fate's Favorite 5 Dong Dong Dong. Audrey's door was suddenly knocked on. The 2 noblewomen who were discussing some strange topics immediately stopped to tidy up their appearance. Vanessa casually waved to lift the spiritual wall and nodded at Audrey. Audrey made an okay gesture, put on an elegant posture, and asked towards the door. Who? Miss, may I come in? The young master is back. It was Audrey's personal maid. Audrey turned her head to look at Vanessa, her eyes full of teasing. Seeing this, Vanessa couldn't help but roll her eyes, which were completely out of line with aristocratic manners. Audrey has 2 biological brothers, the eldest brother Hilbert Hall and the second brother Alfred Hall. Due to their age difference, Vanessa and Hilbert Hall are not familiar and only have a face-saving relationship. However, as Herbert Hall reaches adulthood and is about to enter politics, having a high-ranking marriage partner who can greatly assist his career and family will help him quickly establish himself. Vanessa Augustus, who had a good relationship with her own sister and was the adopted daughter of the current king's sister, had a large amount of dowry in political resources and was a suitable partner, successfully caught the eye of Herbert Hall. Even if it's just an adopted daughter, that's okay. The Earl Hall family doesn't need a next-generation housewife with Augustus blood flowing through her veins. Therefore, Herbert Hall became increasingly enthusiastic about pursuing Vanessa. Come in, yes, miss, twisting her hand, her maid, and pushed the door in. Oh my God, why did you break a mirror all over the floor? Miss too, you guys have nothing to do, right? And, the maid, saw the broken antique bronze mirror on the ground at first sight after entering the door. She immediately said nervously. Audrey blinked her eyes and spoke slowly. Yes, Susie came in before, you know, she always likes to destroy. You have to teach it a good lesson, and skillfully tidied up the fragments of the bronze mirror, afraid of hurting the 2 ladies. We're not in any big deal, Susie is so lively and cute, I really like her, Vanessa said lightly, with a gentle smile on her face. At least compared to some dog man who is also golden-haired, Susie is really cute. Princess Vanessa, Susie is very smart, but sometimes she's like a child. She always likes to do things that make Miss angry, and complains somewhat. Susie is really smart, as you know, Audrey chuckled and said. Vanessa looked at the fragments of copper mirror that Anne had packed up, turned her head to look out the window, and found that a red and yellow halo had already formed in the sky. The sunset had already risen, and she didn't want to have dinner with Herbert Hall, ready to find an excuse to slip away. Oh my God, Audrey, I didn't expect it to be so late. When I'm with you, I always overlook the passage of time. I think I should also say goodbye. Ed Sack's brother is planning to take me to see a play from Intis tonight. Swan Lake. I heard it was written by Emperor Russell the Great, but I've been looking forward to it for a long time. Vanessa turned her back to the maid and frantically winked at Audrey, hoping that she could help her say goodbye. Otherwise, next time her brother, Prince Rune, and Audrey's pursuer appeared, don't blame her for not helping Audrey resist. However, Prince Isaac is also downstairs. He came back with the young master and wanted to pick up Princess Vanessa to watch a play. He also invited the young master and young lady, the maid, and reminded cautiously. Okay, Vanessa, let's go down together. Audrey's lips twitched slightly, and she didn't expect herself, who was originally watching the play, to become a part of it. Vanessa's bathroom at home. The thin white mist enveloped the room, and a figure was soaking in the bathtub enjoying the warm water bathing effect. This was Vanessa Augustus. The water rippled in the bathtub, shrouded in mist, and Vanessa's face became hazy and blurred. The warm water washed away Vanessa's fatigue throughout the day, and the elegant essential oil soothed her spirit. Her skin is delicate and smooth, like a freshly peeled egg. Water droplets slide down her forehead and onto her chest, hidden on the rose petals on the water surface. Vanessa supported her head with her arms, closed her eyes, and enjoyed everything. She opened her eyes and took a deep breath, relieving her long-suppressed fatigue. Really, why is Hilbert so annoying? I'm here to play the game of extraordinary, not the game of love, girl. I should schedule a meeting with Audrey somewhere else next time. Vanessa grumbled irritably, plunging her head into the water, then stood up from the bathtub, wiped her body dry, put on loose pajamas, and walked out of the bathroom. The crimson moon hangs in the sky, and a peaceful and tranquil atmosphere permeates. In this tranquility, Vanessa's day came to an end and she fell asleep. Gudong gudong. The voice rose from far to near, appearing particularly clear in the darkness. Vanessa rubbed her sleepy eyes in a daze and sat up straight. Everything around her was upside down and twisted, and after all the chaos was over, Vanessa found herself standing on a desolate plain, with broken stones underfoot. This plain is very strange, with no grass growing. Black and gray make up everything, like the silent film. Only in the center of the plain stands a black spire. At the top of the towering spire, a huge silver-white snake coiled and coiled there, staring at Vanessa with its blood-red pupils open. Walking under the black spire, Vanessa discovered that the silver giant snake was covered in mystical patterns and symbols, emitting a slight light, resembling a wheel after wheel. The tailed snake. Vanessa looked at the silver giant snake that formed a roulette, and this sentence came to her mind. The next second, a huge crack opened under Vanessa's feet, engulfing her. Vanessa woke up from her dream, sweat dripping down her face on the blanket. The strange dream woke her up, and extraordinary dreams are always full of different meanings. Dreams are magical either as an advance for the future or as a result of the arrival of a nightmare. And the silver giant snake that Vanessa dreamed of made her feel familiar but not afraid. She always felt like the giant snake in her dream was crying. Suddenly, she felt as if she was feeling flustered underneath, as if something had been crushed. She lifted the blanket and a dice lay on her bed. It's dawn. The gift of fate has arrived. What will be the price secretly marked? End of this chapter.